dug out a whole load of my players today. And I thought I should talk about it because I thought, I don't know, Helen. I agree with you, Helen. However, I don't always speak about myself in the third person, but I think that as coaches, we know that everyone's judging us. Not everyone, but almost everyone. We know we're being judged so much, and maybe the harshest judge or critic is ourselves, you know. So for me, why did I dig my players out? And obviously there are some people who might be thinking, what does she mean dig out? Dig out? What is this? Dig. So what's the best way to explain it? Like, you go in and in a session or the game or whatever, digging someone out is when you identify that it's them. You are doing something wrong. This is not what I want. This is not what we need. This is not what you're being asked to do. And you go in and you kind of bullseye that person. You bullseye someone, and you really kind of target them. And you're very aggressive about it. That's digging someone out. And I did that to, I think, 4 or 5 of my lot today. It's a risk to take. It is one of my little tricks, to be honest with you. It's not something that I'm unaccustomed to. I do that sometimes with players. You've got to be careful not to do it too often. And also, in my opinion and in my experience, you've got to know the players fairly well about how they react to things, how they cope, how they sort of digest or how they make sense of something. So if you're going to dig someone out, you kind of need to be prepared for the repercussions to not go to plan. Dig someone out, you kind of need to be prepared for the repercussions to not go to plan. You know, because you could break a player, you could lose an entire group just by making a decision to take that approach, but it completely falls on its face. It's not appropriate. So when you're digging someone out, which I've done loads, to be honest with you, when you're digging someone out, you just got to be mindful about it not working. And what's the desired effect? The desired effect, whenever I've used that sort of style of working with young people especially, the desired effect is an improvement in their approach to the team plan or their own individual plan, you know. So why did I do it today? Is because, to be honest with you, I was just fed up. Just fed up of below average performances and below average attitudes, you know. Like, I appreciate the times are changing, players are a little bit more sort of sensitive, and you get a lot more huggy environments now. But I think there's got to be a balance of that. There's got to be a balance of being tactile and caring and listening and asking someone's opinion. There's got to be a balance between that and being a dictator. Sometimes you will have to just take charge and use that command that you should have. So the opportunity to give players that sort of autonomy and the arm around the shoulder style of coaching, that is not all year round, you know, because I think you need to recognise when maybe some complacency's slipping in, you know. What was I irritated with? And it wasn't just pure emotion, it was like, actually, the strategy I've got to adopt now with you people is I'm going to have to dig you out because you seem to have become a little bit complacent, and the average is now your norm. You know, but it's not the norm of this environment, especially if the desired outcome of the group and their families, because don't forget, you know, their families are also investing in the programme. If you're in the US or another place where the families are actually paying towards the programme, then it's like, hold on, some of you are paying a lot of money for this year, and some of your families are sacrificing a load so that you can be here. You know, I know the cost, and you know, regardless of the cost, really, someone's paying for you to be here. You know, so it's not that they were just showing a neglect towards the investment made by their families. I think what it was for me, well, I know what it was that the standards were just not matching the desired outcome. Do you know what I mean? Like, we just can't accept average unless your outcome that you're hoping to achieve is average. If you just want to, you know, mooch along and just be at a pedestrian pace and not really make a dent in the competition, because we're competing each week, and then we've got new competitions that start in the spring or whatever. But if your desired outcome is middle of the table, average, then fine. Don't get upset about defeats where I've said to them, I've seen enough times how devastated you are when we lose a game. Not to say that you're never going to lose a game. That's just part of the sport. That's part of what we love, the challenge to not lose. You know, but everybody knows that this sport is about a whole load of mistakes. You know, for me to benefit, someone else needs to have made a mistake. So you don't put yourself in a position where you're operating to your disadvantage. You've got to prepare. So today, digging the players out was me using my special powers as a coach, the power of foresight. Like, I'm looking down the road at the end of the week for our game. I'm looking at when spring shows up and we're competing against teams that maybe have got a different mental approach. You know, so we have to start now. In fact, we should have started yesterday for what we expect to achieve in spring. When is spring? It's 3 months away. We've got to get a move on. And so it was just a case of me using a style to really shake them into a wakeland. You know, I was seeing things from our previous game, watching our game over and over again, and obviously you're looking for details, so that's my job. When it doesn't go right, you know, your environment can be patient, but to a point. You know, there are people who really, they look at you and think, well, you're the coach. If we're underperforming in an area, it's your fault, because you're the person who's managing this group of players. So there were lots of patterns that had been developing over the last few months, and it's like, well, if you're not going to take a hold of this, then I'm going to have to change my tactics, and today I'm going to dig you out, and it's going to be relentless, and you might break. I might lose you. You might like me less. However, there's a process to this, and you get what you put in, you get out of it. You know, sometimes you don't get what you deserve, but you've got to put yourself in a position where it's a strong position, because you know you've done everything you can. But that's not what I was seeing. I wasn't seeing a group that were doing everything they can. Maybe some people were, but then it's like, well, are you aware of this issue? Did you see it on the last bit of footage that you watched of our game? Did you notice this? It's your job to. So giving them a little bit of a shake or a big shake by digging out, I think half of them got it from me. Exactly half of those players there at practice today got dug out by me, and it was relentless. It was relentless. No one was under any illusion that this is another side to me, and you're going to get this if you're allowing this pedestrian mentality to creep into our environment when you're expecting this as an outcome. You're not going to get this as an outcome if this is how you perform in preparation for our test, you know. So they all got it, or half of them, and I think the other half were just thinking, Gordon Bennett, when's it going to stop? When's this training session over? You know, I think that part of working with young players is showing them sometimes those levels when they don't have it themselves. They don't have the life experience to use their different levels. They haven't achieved those moments of, I can use my, you know, little bit of method acting. I remember when this happened to me. They don't have that because they haven't been on the earth long enough to gain all of those different ways of, you know, recognising the resources within yourself to dig deep. Some of them can't dig deep. Some of them can only dig deep for a couple of weeks. But it's like, well, this is an all year round program, so we need you to be on high alert for the entirety of the program or of the season. So that's where the coaching style maybe adapts slightly. You've got to recognise when you see things creeping in and becoming accepted as norm. If it's not the norm you want, the environment needs to get a bit of a shake. And unfortunately for our players today, or fortunately for them, their coach is a South Londoner who's very direct, and I can't sit about watching average and accepting it. So today I dug them out. I imagine they went home and were a little bit sore with their ears still ringing. Yet everybody wants to be part of the outcome without recognising they've got to be actively involved in the process. You don't get those wonderful sunny days without getting a little bit of, you know, I can't think of the most appropriate analogy that doesn't sound a little bit too much like I want to be a weather woman. I don't want to be a weather woman. But yeah, that's what today was about. That was the session today. I feel bad for them because they're lovely boys. But you see the other side to it when we lose games, and you know the horns come out and they're you know. So I want to avoid those moments. I want to see them happy. So really, I did this for them.